Hello, you guys. Today I'll be analyzing chapters 1 to 3 of the Kite Runner. So, basically, I'll be discussing characters and the character traits. I'll be discussing the dictation and the style of the story, the figurative language, the mood of the story, and the plot and the settings and the themes and symbols. And of course, when you see proof highlighted in yellow, that's basically the evidence of the points I'll bring up during my analysis. So let's begin. So in chapter 1, this is basically an introduction. Chapter 1 is 2 or 3 pages, depends on the copy of the book you have. So I recommend you have the book next to you. That way you'll be able to highlight everything I mentioned, such as the figurative language and the important quote or the evidence. So the characters, you have Amir, who's the main character, and he also seems like he's the protagonist. You have Rahim Khan, who's a friend. You have Hassan, who's the hair-lipped kite runner. You have Baba, who is Amir's father, and you have Ali, who is Hassan's father. And the dictation and the style of the story is told in first person narration. So Amir is telling us his story. He is the narrator. And then now we will start off with the figurative language. So we have the sentence because the past clause its way out. So this is in the first page of chapter 1. So this is personification because the past cannot physically or actually claw its way out. And then you have the early afternoon sun sparkle on the water where dozens of miniature boats sailed, propelled by crisp breeze. So this is obviously imagery, it's just describing the scenery. And you have the dance above the trees on the west end of the park. So this is metaphor because they're comparing something and that danced. And then you have floating side by side like a pair of eyes looking down. So they're comparing using like. So they're comparing them side by side like a pair of eyes. So that's simile. And then we're talking about the mood. So the mood is actually something very, very important in the Kite Runner. So basically, the mood is nostalgic because the narrator was recalling his past. He mentioned his old self, his family, and the place he called home. So the way the narrator just spoke, you can tell they're looking back at something in a nostalgic way. So basically, he says because the past claws its way out, and a frigid overcast day in the winter of 1975, and just the way he says things and he describes things so detailed in such a detailed manner that that it's if the mood is nostalgic. Even from the first chapter, which is very short, you can grasp a lot of information. And I'll just go down a bit now. I thought of the life I lived in until winter of 1975 came along and changed everything and made me what I am today. So basically, he's looking back and he's talking about everything that has shaped him, everything that has made him, and he was just looking back, especially in a very nostalgic form of way. So now the plot. So the narrator, Amir, mentions the day that changed his life 26 years ago. He does not mention the events that took place. Later, he received a call from his friend Rahim Khan in Pakistan. After that, Amir begins to recall his childhood in Kabul. So basically, we can sense from this small chapter that Amir is currently not living in Kabul. He is living outside Kabul where he spent his childhood, and something happened in Kabul in the winter of 1975 that changed him forever. The settings, so the time, because the setting is place and time, the time was December 2001 and the place was San Francisco, so now we know that Amir was living in San Francisco. The themes plus symbol motives, coming of age, because he said that what shaped me and made me who I am today. So basically when you become a person, not when you become a person, but when you become the person who you are, that's basically coming of age because you build your morals and you grow up to be a certain way and you have your certain traditions and you have your moral compass, your basic set of beliefs. And not proof or evidence actually, that was a long time ago, but it's wrong what they said about the past. I've learned about how you can bury it. It was my past of how you can bury it. And then he said it was my past of unatoned sins. So basically what unatoned sins means that these sins are not forgiven, these sins are not forgotten. And basically he has, what we can sense is that he has made an unforgivable mistake and he has not forgiven himself yet, and it's been haunting him ever since the winter of 1975. So this is a very vague chapter, but we actually get to know a lot from it, but it's still vague and it's still mysterious. It's part of why I actually like this book. It's because you get to it builds up curiosity in you, which makes you want to read more. So chapter 2. So in chapter 2 you have Amir, Hassan, Ali, and in chapter 2 we find out that Ali is Hassan's father, Baba who is Amir's father, Rahim Khan who is Baba's friend, Sanabar who is Hassan's mother. So Sanabar is not actually in the novel, in the book, but she is mentioned. And Amir's teacher. So we have the dictation and the style. So it's basically a lot of this book is Afghan culture and arranged marriages and Hazaras, bullying and racism. So basically there is this feud, not feud, but in Afghanistan there is this conflict where you have the Pashtuns and the Hazaras, and they both live in Afghanistan, and it's quite often mentioned because Amir is a Pashtun and Hassan is a Hazara, so there is a lot of racism coming from the outside and separating this friendship or brotherhood. I shall get into that later because we are still in the beginning. So let's discuss the figurative language. Her eyes like bamboo leaves. So basically this is a simile because Amir was comparing Hassan's eyes to bamboo leaves and he used the word like. He was Amir. His was Amir, my name. Looking back at it now, I think the foundation for what happened in the winter of 1975 and all that followed was already laid in those first words. So this was foreshadowing because they're basically talking about something that happened in the past, something that was said in the past that will foreshadow in the future, that will happen in the future. So that's actually called foreshadowing. And then the mood is nostalgic, since the narrator was remembering his old life and he kept recalling memories. Proof. When we were children, Hassan and I used to climb the popular trees in the driveway of my father's house and annoy our neighbors by reflecting sunlight into their homes with a shard of mirror. Hassan never denied me anything. Everyone agreed that my father, my Baba, had built the most beautiful home in the Wazir Akbar Khan district, a new and affluent neighborhood in the northern part of Kabul. Oh, sorry guys, I typed Kabul wrong by mistake. Upstairs was my bedroom, Baba's room, and his study, also known as the smoking room, which perpetually smelled of tobacco and cinnamon. I'm sorry, guys. And cinnamon. Plot. So Amir recalled his memories with his good friend Hassan. So now, from this chapter, we do know that Amir and Hassan do have this very strong bond, and they only have each other, that seems so. So they kind of have a friendship, but this friendship kind of touches brotherhood. So there's this thin line between brotherhood and friendship when it comes to Hassan and Amir. Amir would encourage Hassan to fire walnuts with his slingshot at the neighbor's one-eyed German shepherd. That behavior exhibited the fact that Amir was a negative influence on Hassan. So we can tell that Amir being so now let me explain a bit. So Amir was the son of Baba. Baba was this very influential, strong person, and he was very rich and powerful. When Hassan was the son of the servant Ali, and he was a Hazara, and in Afghanistan, the Hazaras were lower class than the Pashtuns. So Amir always had the power, and other than the fact that Amir was in the position of power, Hassan had this very kind personality. So he would never deny Amir anything. Even if he could deny Amir anything, he wouldn't, because it wasn't his personality. He loved Amir and he never denied him anything. So Amir would make him do that, which was kind of a negative influence. In this chapter, readers learn that Amir came from a wealthy family. He had lived in the best house of the district, if not the entire city. On the other hand, his friend Hassan lived in a little shack. These boys came from different backgrounds, yet they had yet the thing that they had in common was that they were motherless. So this also made their bond closer, because they always had this one thing that they could relate to. Amir's mother had passed away after giving birth to him. Hassan's mother ran away with a clan of traveling singers and dancers. So back then, of course, in Afghanistan, that was very shameful what she had done. Hassan's mother Sanawbar was a rebellious woman who committed numerous sins. Not only has she committed sins, yet she enticed men into committing sins such as infidelity. So Sanawbar, she was nothing like her son Hassan. She was rebellious, and she all often, did things she wasn't supposed to do and things that were frowned upon, and she just did not have a good reputation. Sanabal was Hassan's father's first cousin. They had gotten married with hopes of improving Sanabal's father's reputation. So Sanabal had done so many bad things, and in order to get rid of that reputation that she had built for herself and for her father, because her father had a bad reputation because of her, she ended up marrying her cousin, who was Ali, Hassan's father, and Sanaubar and Ali ended up having Hassan. The only good thing that came out of Sanabar was giving Ali a child. So that was the only thing that woman had ever done that was good. Well, that was considered good. After giving birth to the child, she gave it to Ali and she refused to hold it. 5 days passed and she was gone. So now we got to learn about their backgrounds. We got to learn that Amir and Hassan both are motherless, and they were very good friends, and they both came from different backgrounds, yet they always had this brotherhood. And this brotherhood was a bit, there was always this distance, and this distance was their difference in social class and the difference in race. And then the setting, so the setting was before 1975, because this was before Amir did this sin that he could never forgive himself for, and it was also Amir's childhood, and the setting was in Kabul, where Amir had grown up. And the themes are coming of age, bullying, and racism. And then we have proof. So coming of age, we have that when we were children, Hassan and I used to climb the popular trees in the driveway of my father's house and annoy our neighbors, reflecting the sunlight into their homes with a shard of mirror. So basically, he was just recalling his memories and how these days changed him and how they made him who he was. Bullying, what a tight, sugary she had. They chased him on the street and mocked him when he hobbled by. Some had taken to calling him Babalu or Boogeyman. Oh, okay, so I hadn't talked about this, you guys. So basically, when Hassan and Amir were going to the movies, the soldier stopped them, and the soldier saw Hassan, and he recognized him because he had had some type of affair with his mother, and he had basically bullied Hassan and just really said really bad things, which was bullying, and it was also racist. The bullying he was saying was racist. The things he was saying to while bullying him were racist comments. And by the end of the movie, Hassan, when they reached and watched the movie, Hassan began crying because he was in pain after what the soldier had told him. And we also know that Ali used to be bullied, and they would call him Babalu or Boogeyman, and they would chase him on the street and mock him. Racism. You, the Hazara, look at me when I'm talking to you. So they always look down on Hazaras. They talk to them in a mean way, and it was basically racism because they looked down on them and mistreated them. Chapter 3. Characters. So you have characters: Amir, Baba, Hassan, Rahim Khan, Sophia Akrami, so that was Amir's mother, and Mullah Fatiwallah Khan. So that was the teacher of religion. He taught Amir religion, and the dictation and styles of Afghan culture, father and son, and visiting memories. So figurative language. At parties, when all 6'5" of men thundered into the room, attention shifted to him like sunflowers turning to the sun. So this was a simile because he compared using like. He compared the attention shifting like sunflowers turning to the sun. So much like a growling truck engine. So this is a simile again because they used like, so they're comparing. The water was deep blue and sunlight glittered on its looking glass clear surface. So this is just imagery. They're just describing the scene. I felt as if I was sitting on a pair of tree trunks. So this is actually a simile because It's using as, the way when you compare two things and you use as, it is a simile. And then you have the mood. So guys, sorry, this is not a metaphor, it is a simile. The mood. Sad since the narrator was so proud of being his father's son, yet the narrator's father was not proud of his son. Amir felt guilty about his mother's death and wondered if his father resented him. So basically, Amir had carried this burden of being the reason that his mother passed away, because he passed away when she gave birth to him, and that was mentioned in chapter 2. So Amir always wondered if this was the reason why his father was always so distant from him, and they always had this rift in their relationship. Proof: I didn't want to disappoint him again. So Amir felt like he was a disappointment to his father. If I hadn't seen the doctor put him out of my wife with my own eyes, I'd never believe he's my son. So basically what happened when this quote was said was Amir overheard his father telling Rahim Khan that he does not, well, not he does not believe, but he cannot believe that Amir is his son because they have nothing in common. Plot. So this chapter is focused on Baba. Readers gain a better understanding of Baba and his relationship with Amir. Baba was a powerful man. He was powerful and played an important role in society. Rahim Khan had told Amir a story about Baba, who, despite not being an architect, successfully drew the blueprint of the orphanage. That story was a very good example of Baba's other stories, since he succeeded in his career as a merchant and married royalty. So everything Baba did was just perfection. The man did nothing wrong, and he was just a very important man. He was intimidating. At school, Amir learned that drinking is a sin. When Amir tells his father about that, his father explains his own version of committing sins. Baba viewed any sin as theft. For instance, murder was stealing someone's wife. So Baba has this very interesting concept of theft, of committing sins, and the only sin you can commit is theft, and it can be any type of sin, but in the end it is theft. So, and it was actually a very interesting concept. Looking at Baba's point of view, readers can deduce that he was, for instance, murder was stealing someone's life. I'm sorry guys, this is wrong, sorry guys. Someone's life. Looking at Baba's point of view, readers can deduce that he was more analytical than religious, the opposite of Ali Hassan's father. So basically, from the beginning you can tell that Baba and Ali were foil characters. They had different sets of beliefs and they came from completely different backgrounds, so it made sense. Ali was a poor Hazara who was uneducated, and his work was basically labor, while Baba's work was being a merchant, it was business, and he was a very rich man, and he was a Pashtun, and the Pashtuns were often more respected in Afghan society. So Baba was a huge soccer fan and constantly encouraged Amir to be one too. Soccer was not Amir's thing, and he even put in effort. It never worked out. So Amir tried to please his father. He tried to like soccer, but in the end of the day, he couldn't. He tried and he just failed miserably. So that just didn't work out. One day, Amir overhears Baba admitting to Rahim Khan that he thinks something is wrong with his son. So yes, like I mentioned previously, Amir heard his father saying that he does not think that, not that he cannot think that Amir is his son, but he cannot believe Amir is his son because they simply have nothing in common. So if he had not seen Amir come out of his wife, he would not think Amir was his son. It was, they're different, how different they were made his father question if Amir was his son at this point. But he knew he was his son, but he was just not believing it. Setting. So the time was 1971 and Amir was 8 years old. And the themes and symbols were coming of age and family, and I will show them to you now, guys. So coming of age. In this chapter, the theme of coming of age is exhibited through Amir's upbringing as a child. During his upbringing, Amir learned about Islam at school, spent time with his friend Hassan, and tried to please his father. Family. I wanted Baba all to myself. I was so proud of Baba, of us. So basically, I always wanted his father to himself. He always wanted his father to share, to actually give him all his love instead of giving Hassan some of that love. And when his father was, opening his orphanage, he was so proud of his father, and he felt like they were one. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye bye.